When he learned to think about the best, there are moments in life when the mind feels like a room filled with echoes. Echoes of doubts, echoes of memories, echoes of fears. Thoughts appear one after another, as if they wanted to occupy every corner of our peace. Matteo knew that feeling very well. From the outside, his life seemed calm. He had a job, a small apartment, and friends who appreciated him. But inside, there was a silent battle that no one could see. It was the battle of thoughts. Every night, when the world became quiet, his mind began to work, and it was not working in his favor. He thought about what could go wrong. He thought about mistakes he had made. He thought about decisions that might not have been the right ones. Sometimes he imagined the future, but he always imagined it in darkness. What if I fail? What if I lose what I have? What if nothing ever changes? Little by little, his mind had become used to expecting the worst, not because he wanted to be pessimistic, but because fear has a very convincing way of speaking to the heart. If you have ever overthought the worst, write me in the comments, because many times we believe we are the only ones who think this way, but in reality, many people are fighting silent battles inside their minds. One afternoon, after a particularly heavy day, Matteo decided to go for a walk. He had no clear destination. He just needed to breathe. The air was warm, and the sky was beginning to paint itself with soft colors as the sun slowly descended. He walked along a path that crossed a small old park. It was a quiet place where very few people passed by. The trees were tall and ancient, as if they had witnessed thousands of stories. Matteo walked while looking at the ground, lost in his thoughts. Then he noticed something that caught his attention. An old man was sitting beside the path. He had a long white beard, and his face was full of deep wrinkles that seemed to hold years of wisdom. In his hands he was holding a small flower. He was observing it with such calm that it felt as if time around him had stopped. Matteo didn't know exactly why, but he approached him. Maybe it was the serenity of the old man. Maybe it was the silence around him, or maybe it was simply the desire to quiet the noise inside his mind for a moment. The old man looked up and smiled. It was a peaceful smile, without hurry, as if he knew something the rest of the world had forgotten. Matteo sat near him. For a few minutes neither of them spoke. They were simply there, listening to the wind moving through the trees. Finally Matteo sighed, and he spoke. "Sometimes my mind doesn't stop." The old man looked at him with attention. "What does your mind think about?" Matteo hesitated before answering. "It always imagines the worst." The old man slightly tilted his head. Matteo continued. "I imagine things going wrong, losing opportunities, failing, nothing changing." The old man remained silent for a few seconds. Then he looked again at the small flower he was holding. It was a simple flower, small, delicate, but beautiful. Then he said a sentence Matteo would never forget. "If you can overthink the worst, why not think about the best?" Matteo frowned slightly. The sentence seemed simple, but at the same time it had something powerful, something that made his mind pause. "I had never thought about it that way," Matteo said. The old man smiled. "The mind is always imagining something," he replied. "It is always creating stories about the future." Matteo slowly nodded. "But most people," the old man continued, "only imagine storms." Matteo lifted his eyes. The old man pointed to the flower. "This flower grew among stones." Matteo looked at the small stem. It was true. The ground was hard and full of small rocks. "The wind hits it," said the old man. "The rain falls on it. Sometimes the sun burns it." He paused. "And yet, it still blooms." Matteo felt something move inside his heart. The old man continued speaking softly. "Life does not always change when circumstances change. Sometimes life changes when the way we think changes." Matteo stayed silent. He had spent so much time imagining failures that he had almost forgotten to imagine possibilities. The old man spoke again. "If your mind has the power to imagine the worst, it also has the power to imagine the best." Matteo took a deep breath. It was a simple idea, but at the same time, it was revolutionary. For years he had trained his mind to expect danger, but he had never trained it to expect blessings. "What if things go well?" the old man asked. Matteo didn't answer, because he had never asked himself that question. What if opportunities arrive that you never imagined? What if the paths that seem closed today open tomorrow? What if something beautiful is growing, even when you cannot see it yet? Matteo looked at the sky. The clouds were beginning to turn golden. The old man spoke one more time. Hope does not mean ignoring difficulties. Hope means choosing to believe that light also exists. The wind moved gently through the leaves of the trees. Matteo felt a calm he had not felt in a long time, not because his problems had disappeared, but because he had discovered something new. His thoughts did not have to be enemies. They could become allies. They could become seeds of hope. Matteo slowly stood up. He looked at the old man and smiled. "Thank you." The old man simply nodded. Matteo began walking again along the path. But this time something had changed. His thoughts were still there, but now he had a new question to answer them with. Every time his mind imagined the worst, he remembered the sentence, "If you can overthink the worst, why not think about the best?" And with time, something began to change. His days did not become perfect, but his heart became lighter. Because when we learn to think about the light, even the shadows begin to look different. Lesson: the mind has immense power. It can build fear, or it can build hope. Many times we suffer more because of what we imagine than because of what truly happens. But when we learn to guide our thoughts toward trust, possibility, and hope, our hearts begin to walk with more peace. Because life does not always change first on the outside. Sometimes it changes when we decide to look at the future with hope. Final interaction. Now, I want to ask you something. Has your mind ever made you imagine the worst, even when nothing had happened yet? If it has, tell me in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, share it with someone who may need this message today. Because sometimes a story can change a thought, and a thought can change a life. And if you enjoy stories that heal the soul and bring hope to the heart, subscribe to the channel and join me for the next stories. Every day we will share a reflection that may bring a little more light into your life.